Bush? Ms. Reese? Mr. D'Ambrosio? Mr. Costa? And the chair is present. Approval of the planning board minutes of April 25th, 2024. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? I do have one question on page 4, paragraph 6. It says, Mr. Kutu said there were types of businesses to consider. He said there were many auto body places and hairdressers. I don't recall that I said hairdressers, so I'd just like to have that checked. I knew there were hardware stores, but nevertheless, other than that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the correction.
Motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Ms. Rashevitz. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Director's report. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be quick. We have a long agenda tonight, but the first thing is we've hired a new principal planner, finally, after about 6 or 8 months or so. Abby McVery is going to start in the middle of June. She has a bachelor's from UConn in poli-sci and a master's in public administration from UConn. She just graduated a few weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to bringing her on, and you're going to get to meet her at your next meeting. And the second item is, I think most of you know, Andy D'Angelo is going to be our court reporter moving forward from here on in. The reason we're decided to have a court reporter is because of the change in the new zoning and regulations, and there's a lot of things open to interpretation. So we just want to make sure that we have the record and the board is covered. And that's all I have.
Okay. Item number 4, request for 1-year extension, major land development master plan, project name Ann and Hope Mill redevelopment, owner applicant Hartford Holdings LLC, location 100 Ann and Hope Way, assessors plat 11, lot 159. The zoning is I-1 with public water and sewer. The applicant requests the first 1-year by right extension of master plan approval. Mr. Modica.
Thank you. So the Ann and Hope master plan received master plan approval from this board in 2022. They were vested for 2 years. So now the applicant is requesting the first of their first 1-year by right extension. And I don't know if Mr. Marandola is here. He's not. Okay. No, so the applicant is not present, but I mean, they are allowed by right that 1-year extension.
Board have any questions?
Question.
Ms. Reese?
My question is about what's going on in the parking lot of the Ann and Hope.
You mean all the vehicles that are there?
The 100 trailers that are
Yeah.
parked there.
So it's an I-1 zone, and storage of vehicles, machinery, equipment that is allowed in an industrial district. So I don't think they're doing anything. I mean, I can confirm with the building official, but those kinds of uses would be allowed.
So it's okay for us to approve one project and have something else at that site? That's my question.
Right.
Because we didn't, when they came, we didn't know about that when
Right.
they came to us, right?
But they're still allowed to use the property for that. I don't know the circumstances. If Mr. Marandola was here, he could explain it.
It's just an eyesore for anyone. It doesn't look good. The neighbors are complaining, and I'm just bringing it up.
No, I understand.
Any other questions? We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the 1-year by right extension of the master plan for the Ann and Hope Mill redevelopment.
Do I have a second? Second. Is that Mr. Bush? Second by Mr. Bush. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Ms. Reese, voted in opposition. Item number 5, request for one-year extension, comprehensive permit, major land development, master preliminary plan, project name 910 Mendon Road, owner applicant J-Ro Orellano, I apologize for butchering, Orleano, location 910 Mendon Road, assessors plat 34, lot 114, zoning C1 with public water and sewer. The applicant requests a second one-year by right extension of preliminary plan approval. My mouth is dry.
Thank you. So this project was initially approved by this board in 2022. At the time, comprehensive permits were vested for only 1 year. So the applicant came before you last year to request a one-year extension. And they're coming before you tonight just as out of an abundance of caution. The comprehensive permit regulations have since changed, starting this year, and they get 2-year vesting, but we're going by the old regulations, assuming it's a 1-year extension. So we do have the attorney for the applicant here who could speak to it.
Mr. Partington.
Good evening, everybody. Scott Partington for the applicant. This gentleman had a situation with his engineer. I felt bad for the guy. It went on for over a year trying to get the plans finalized, even to the point where I wrote the gentleman the letter, the engineer, and he called me. And although he didn't give me specific instructions as to what to do with my letter, I got the impression that that things weren't. He wasn't too impressed, to say the least. So fortunately, he has retained, the applicant has retained a new engineer who's got about everything ready to go. It was an easement that was a condition of approval, which the meets and bounds was just sent to me, so I can draft that. And the only thing holding it up at this point is a physical alteration permit, which has been applied for. So just so you haven't, I figured it was a good time to do an update. It's been a while, long overdue, so.
Board, have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the second one-year by right extension of the preliminary plan for 910 Mendon Road.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler, second by Mr. D'Ambrosio. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes yes.
Thank you very much.
Next item of business, public meeting, major land development preliminary plan, project name Cumberland Physical Therapy. Owner Dean Development LLC, applicant Thomas Almeida, location 1140 Mendon Road, assessors plat 34, lot 261. Zoning is I1 with public water and public sewer. The applicant seeks request preliminary plan approval to construct a one-story, 4,975 square foot physical therapy building. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board approved the master plan for this project just a few months ago, and they're back with their preliminary plan. Not a lot has changed since then. They did prepare a very detailed master plan. At the last meeting, we spoke about a landscape plan, and they've provided that. It meets all the regulations for parking lots and for the site. They provided a lighting plan, which is on sheet 4 of your plan, and tonight the specs are in front of you for the proposed lighting. We talked about a sign at the last meeting. They've identified a sign location, but they're going to come back later and apply for a sign permit to put one up. There are 2 outstanding items that would be conditions of approval. One is the physical alteration permit from RIDOT, which they're still waiting for. And we also discussed that this was a Superfund site known as OU2. They've submitted the work plan to EPA, and we're waiting to get a response from EPA in their approval. So we're recommending approval of the preliminary plan on the condition of receiving the physical alteration permit and EPA approval of their work plan.
Board have any questions or comments for Mr. Modica? Hearing none, is the applicant here or his representative?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Joseph Lamagna. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is here, and his development team are also here, if you have any questions of them. I'd like to address the outstanding issues, one of which is the physical alteration permit, which has been applied for. The second is the EPA, it's actually an order that's on the real estate record, and the property cannot be developed until the EPA has approved the plans and amends that order. So we need the approval of this board to go forward with the EPA. The application has been filed with the EPA by the development team, but we don't have an answer from them because they will not approve it until they see the actual approved plans. If you have any other questions, Mr. Almeida is here and his development team are also here.
Board have any questions? The only question I have, when do you anticipate if and when you get approval, how long it's going to take for the EPA to? Yeah.
It's like
That's
asking
the
how
reason why
high
I
is up.
asked.
I don't know.
Yeah.
To be honest, I really don't know. It should be pretty much pro forma once they get the approved plans, because there is a specification in the order that says they will alter the order if they get plans that meet their requirements. And I submit to you that these plans meet their requirements.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here, or is his engineer here? Want to walk us through any?
The applicant is here. Do you
Sure.
need-
I think the engineer can handle it from here. Yep, just a second, I'm just getting it up. Thank you. Sorry for being just a little late. Yep, joint panels. Okay, good evening, board members. My name is David D'Amico. I am with the firm of D'Amico Engineering Technologies with offices at 2080 Mineral Spring Avenue in North Providence, Rhode Island. I am a professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island, and I am the civil engineer of record of these plans tonight for 1140 Mendon Road. I just want to just go back. I heard the attorney may not be totally up on this, but we have, I've submitted a PAP permit months ago. It actually took like 5 months, but we have what we call the initial permit for that. So the only thing we have to do is when it's ready for construction, when they're ready to go for construction, once we hopefully get by the board tonight, the contractor will go down and provide a bond for the amount of work that's going to go in the road and his insurance. Once he does that, he has the permit. So we're essentially there. Just looking at the existing condition, essentially it's zoned I1. I want to just note that this board granted a special use for this use in the last at the master plan level. It's 2.8 acres. It's primarily it has been cleared in the past with some work done on it. You can kind of see the tree line in there. And let's see if I can move this. It doesn't move that great. You can kind of see the existing tree line in there. We pretty much stay within that. We try to stay within that tree line because the slopes get pretty pretty severe on that back side. So getting to the proposed design, it's a one-floor, single office-type building with 4,975 square feet. That's the darker shade that you see on this particular plan. And then you can see the parking lot that is proposed. Right now, with the square footage, your requirement for parking is 17 spaces, and we provide, I believe it's 29 spaces total, which is something the client wanted. It's definitely more expensive to construct that, but with his patience and whatnot, it's good to have more parking than zoning requires. As you can see, there is a safety turnaround there that was required for the fire department. Essentially, this is the turnaround right in here, so the vehicle can come up and back up in there. We do have, just show you, we do have a view of that. So you can all take a look. One more. There it is. That's the vehicle template. That's your largest E1 emergency vehicle going up and being able to turn around without having to back down. And I believe the fire station is to the north, right around Clock Road. So, so that kind of fits in there very well. Getting back to that, pretty much, you know, we have the handicap parking. There's walkways around the building, and there is lighting going up the driveway for the site. Let's just move on to the drainage and utility plan. Essentially, this is kind of on a peak of this area, and pretty much most of the drainage for this site falls off to the back, which is the back, I say, which would be to the west of the property. Mendon Road is to the east. And so that's pretty much where we directed the runoff. We were able to design a bioretention filter in the back. It kind of fits really nice with the existing grades, and it will just outfall. There are a couple of channels back there that it will eventually outfall, meter out to the back property, which eventually gets into Martin Street. All the utilities right now are proposed to come off Mendon Road. Water, sewer, gas, and power. Soil erosion plan, let's just go to the landscape plan that was just recently added. I can't speak to this as an expert, but you can see that an extensive landscape plan has been proposed for the site, not only around the building in the roadway going up, but also in the cleared area along the front. That, if you notice, that area has been essentially cleared of the larger trees, and they are proposing to go back in there and plant some shrubs. So that is a pretty quick overview of the site. About the only thing I had to change on my plan was we added a fence, the standard fence around, the 4-foot fence around the bioretention swale. So that has the 4-foot fence around it with a 10-foot gate for service.
the board have any questions for Mr. D'Ambrosio?
So the mention of a Superfund site, obviously it's contaminated. Or what is the deal with that?
All right, I am not the environmental expert, but the civil. And this portion of this property was removed from the main property below, all right? And that is, boy, I'm going to say that is approximately 30 to 40 feet below this site. So I don't believe any pollutants have been detected in this area. All right, they're all in the industrial site below. Even though this land was part of that, it still gets that designation, even though it was cut out. But I believe, based on the data I've seen, and I don't want to, this is informational, that this area here is all clean. There's
Okay.
nothing
So
contaminated
No
in
mitigation
this.
process or anything like
That's-
that, no capping?
That is what I understand, yes. And I do want to say that if there was an issue, I would have to do certain design elements. I would have to make sure there were certain design elements, like no leaching. I don't think I would be able to use a bioretention swale, so that was not required.
Okay.
I can kind of speak to a little bit of that because I have some knowledge of that.
Excellent.
With the people from federal government. They were very conservative when they picked what they thought would be the area. So, and they realized that some of the areas were not contaminated, but to be on the safe side, they expanded it. So they pretty much really know exactly where the contamination is and then where it isn't, but they wanted to make sure that they caught everything. So that's kind of where they are with that. Anyone else have any questions? I have one comment, okay, and I know last time the applicant was here, we talked about handicap spaces and so on. The thing that came to mind just recently is there's 2 spaces here. I'm thinking that I'm going to make a recommendation, but I'm not holding anyone to it, that at least one of those spaces is van accessible, so it's a little bit wider than the standard space, just in case, you know what I mean? Anywhere I've gone, whether it was the old therapy, where it used to be on Butler Avenue, and then they moved it to the Point, they have all these spaces for handicap, but they always have a couple of them designated for vans in the event that somebody comes in with a van, whether it's a professional that's picking up and dropping someone off, reverse that, or it's a personal van. So it's just a recommendation that if it's possible to make one of them, and you would post it that way too, that it's van accessible.
It is, Mr. Chairman, it is.
Okay.
So if you want to make that a condition, that's not a problem.
It doesn't have to be a condition, it's just a recommendation. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Oh, the lighting? Yeah. Yeah, we're starting to go with LEDs just about everywhere now. They work really well on athletic fields. They really light up the area, and it concentrates the light on, in the athletic fields, on the athletic field. It's not bleeding off the site. And obviously, they're using less electricity too. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to Cumberland Physical Therapy, that we find that the preliminary plan application is consistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan as outlined in the findings of fact in Mr. Modica's memo to the planning board dated May 23rd, 2024. and further move that we approve the preliminary plan with the following conditions. Number one, the applicant will provide the planning department with EPA approvals of the construction work plan, health and safety plan, and the soil management plan. And number two, the applicant will provide the planning department with a physical alteration permit from RIDOT.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Farshich. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the chair votes yes. Good luck.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, board members.
The next item is item number 7, formal development plan review, project name Diamond Hill Pump Track, owner applicant Town of Cumberland, location 4097 Diamond Hill Road, Assessors Plat 59, Lot 15, zoning A1 with public water but no sewer. The town proposes to construct a pump track within Diamond Hill Park. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I want to back up 1 second on Ann and Hope. Mr. Marandola was having technical difficulties on Zoom. He emailed me to say that the tenant is going to be moving out soon, so hopefully all that stuff will be gone. Regarding the pump track, so this is formal development plan review. It's kicked in because 10,000 square feet or more are being disturbed. In this case, it's about 21,000 square feet. So the town is proposing to build a pump track, which is kind of like a roller coaster for bicycles. They go up and down and around and without pedaling, using gravity. So the only potential issue here is in terms of drainage. Our public works director has been intimately involved with the project, and he is satisfied with how the drainage is going to work out. So as part of development plan review, again, there are no findings of facts. The project just has to be consistent with the land development and subdivision regulations, which the planning department finds that this project does meet those regulations, and we are recommending approval. And we do have the engineers here if the board has any questions.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Modica? Okay, hearing none, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Spencer Lins with Par Corporation, Civil Site Design Engineer. This is Greg LaCroix. He's with our Natural Resources Group. Greg LaCroix. Glenn provided a very good description of the pump track. There's not much more to discuss. I guess just in terms of existing conditions, I'll let Greg just mention the natural resources present outside of the limit of disturbance, just to provide you with the information necessary.
Thank you. Good evening. So on the site, we have Silvis Brook and a forested swamp that borders on the brook. Silvis Brook is a 200-foot buffer zone and jurisdictional area under the Rhode Island wetland regulations. And the swamp gets a 100-foot buffer zone and jurisdictional area. As Spencer said, we've remained outside of both of those areas completely.
So in terms of demolition and tree clearing, the only thing that's going on site is the clearing of 14 individual trees and the regrading of the hillside. The rest of the tree clearing sort of has to do with small, low-lying scrub growth and leaf litter. It's pretty insignificant in nature and doesn't necessarily warrant a full tree clearing designation. Beyond that, it's just clearing the topsoil and regrading the site to provide for a relatively flat pump track surface so that, like Glenn said, you have these sort of rolling hills that you use your momentum to get up and down with on your bike. Greg, if you want to just go to the drainage and utility plan. In terms of drainage, even though we're outside of RIDEM jurisdictional areas, we like to design things with the best available regulations, RIDEM being the case here. So we've designed stormwater and made considerations for jurisdictional areas just as we would if we were within those jurisdictional areas. So the existing hydrology has been recreated with swales. around the pump track. In addition, we are dissipating flows with check dams, and we're providing water quality swale to provide what little water quality infrastructure is necessary to treat the very small amount of pavement that we're proposing for the pump track itself. Beyond that, there's not much more to discuss. It's a paved track on one of the old toboggan hills. It's pretty much unused at Diamond Hill Park, and it presents a great benefit for the recreational ability for that, or the recreational opportunity that Diamond Hill Park presents the residents to Cumberland. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Board have any questions? Mr. Butler?
I don't know if it's so much of a question as a suggestion, and it may not be related to you folks, but more to the town. I was just thinking about how people would access the track. So I assume most folks are going to put their bike in their car and then drive to the park and take their bike out and then ride their bike through the parking lot. And then there's a road that goes to the pavilion, but there really isn't any connection between the pavilion and the pump track. So folks, I think, will just end up riding anywhere on all of this grass or dirt or whatever it is. So maybe some, I don't think it has to be a paved path, but maybe some path so that kind of limit the damage to that area in front of the pump track.
Absolutely. So to that effect, I would say most of that area below the pump track itself is already kind of very limited in grass growth. It's generally gravel already. It's very beat in with the people who are utilizing the Diamond Hill Park trails themselves. So in addition to that, to provide formal infrastructure for that, there'd be a much more formal review process with RIDEM. We felt as the town and the design team that it was better to prioritize putting the pump track in, given that there's already enough access there for, I mean, you could go there on any Saturday afternoon, you see a lot of bikes around there. So they're getting around the site just fine, but that is a worthwhile note.
Any other questions? Mr. Ambrosia?
I'm not sure, you might not be able to answer this question, but I remember several years ago, I believe that someone had been building pump tracks in the back of the monastery. And so my question is, was anyone from the town included in this design process, local riders? And also, was the design of the pump track vetted for safety and for, optimal use?
Yeah, so before we were even brought on as the site design engineers, a formal pump track consultant was brought in, and they're also the ones who are constructing portions of the pump track as well. They've gone through a very formal review process and vetted it for safety concerns. I've specifically designed the drainage infrastructure in such a way that, if you were to fall off your bike, you'd be falling into grass instead of crushed stone, riprap, things of that nature. So safety was very heavily vetted by the pump track consultants, and it was vetted by ourselves as the civil site engineers. And in terms of other siting, that was the town was involved in that very heavily. There was a lot of other parts of Diamond Hill Park that were considered, and this was chosen as sort of the most ideal site and the most out of the way.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a couple of comments. I had a discussion with Mr. Modica, and we'd like to see an area that's designated for trash, like I have a pad there for trash. And we also talked about maybe putting a couple of benches there so that, when riders get up there and if they want to, change shoes to whatever they use for riding bikes and something like that, there's a couple of places, or for them to sit. And also, if they bring friends and their friends are just going to stay there and watch them run, I thought it would be a good idea to have a little bit of, nothing fancy, just a couple of benches, but really designate a place for trash, because my big concern is having it policed in such a way that somebody's got to go up there every day and clear the trash. Well, if you've got a designated trash area, it's almost inviting people to put stuff there, and you can always put up, adequate signage, please don't leave any trash around, and use the receptacles and so on. So I think we thought it was a pretty good idea to make that recommendation.
I think that's absolutely reasonable, and as an order of approval, we can absolutely provide something like that. I don't know if it even necessarily needs to formally end up on the plans. I mean, Joe Duarte, we've been working with directly, and that could be absolutely raised with him and provided. As well, in terms of benches and spectator area, there is a steep slope more or less above the pump track, on the upgradient side of the pump track, that is sort of a lay down area. You're tired or you're trying to watch your friends or something like that. But benches were floated as an idea here, and could very well be proposed in the future. And I would once again point to Joe to be able to get that done.
I'm not suggesting like grandstands or like what they have in Little League fields. No,
Sure.
just a common bench, like a four-seater,
Sure.
something like that, that somebody could just sit down.
Yeah.
And change, even if they've done enough riding for a while and they want to take a rest, you have their backpack there loaded with, whatever refreshment they need, and they get back up on the track. So it's just a place for them to, sit and, take a little bit of a breather.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yep, sorry, I thought of another question, also safety related.
Yep.
Was any sort of emergency pathway for an ambulance or anything like that looked at to make sure that if someone did not land on the grass?
Yeah, the downslope areas are such a pitch that an ambulance would be able to get around the paved path around what we call the stage area that was put in recently. There is a paved path around that for vehicular access that I believe gets utilized already during like Cumberland days. That would be immediate access for ambulance to get back there, in order to access any emergency services that would be needed. There is ample ability at the base of the track for an ambulance to pull up to, for sure.
Okay, great, just wanted to make sure.
Yep,
That's an excellent point.
that's a great point, yeah.
Having experience when I used to use it for sledding in this wintertime. And I know that the rescuers up there making numerous runs up there. And I'm anticipating that somewhere along the line, there may be end up somebody that's gonna end up, breaking an arm or something like that. Just, it's the kind of activity that it is.
I mean, I know sledding was the very concern as to why sledding was sort of banned, I'll say. There's still a lot of sledding that I think everybody knows goes on over there. This would effectively kill one one toboggan slope to be able to do that on now. So I would say maybe in that sense it does provide an emergency benefit.
Yeah. I know of an individual, this goes back several years, when they were sledding up there, broke his clavicle. So it's.
They shut it down for a
As long as
reason.
we have, adequate access,
Yeah.
so that when the rescue goes up there, and then if they get out the gurney or whatever, they're not, bouncing around and so on, that there's, a good place for them to set up and then be able to transport somebody
Yep.
to the ambulance.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Mr. Costa?
Who's going to maintain the facility? For example, picking up trash on the paths?
Yeah.
Cutting grass, making sure that any crushed stone that's where it's supposed to be, stays where it's supposed to be, is not in the path, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so there is, I don't believe, too much crushed stone that's proposed other than underneath the riprap, and the riprap isn't really going to have much ability to migrate. Other than that, most surfaces, there will be a crushed stone sort of base at the end of the path, but that's already sort of a gravel area. That crushed stone is going to be pretty indiscernible after an amount of time in comparison to the rest of the gravel around that. In addition, it's just loam and seed the rest of the site and pavement. The folks who are using that, they've already been engaged with. The pump track consultant themselves have been a part of the community engagement. There's going to be a very big following around this pump track. They're going to want to see it kept nice. So on top of the community use that's going to keep it nice, it is going to be properly maintained by the town's DPW. We did provide a long-term operation and maintenance plan to the DPW to operate the track in the long term. So the town also does have some responsibility. They are named as the responsible owner of that pump track, but I would be willing to bet, as someone who's also involved in outdoor recreation communities like that, the folks who are using the track are going to be taking the most care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Butler?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in
I'm sorry to
regards to the
interrupt.
Diamond Hill.
Mr. Butler, I'm
minute,
sorry, we do have, I think that we have someone who wants to comment on Zoom.
Yes, please.
So Deborah, I'm going to allow you to talk, so.
Hi, I'm Deborah Vine Smith, from Colonial Avenue, Cumberland, Rhode Island. And,
Mr. Chairman, so we now have a court reporter, so you need to instruct anybody that's appearing on Zoom to speak slowly and clearly, because it's very hard for him to take down just the voice, without them being here.
I'll do that. So please.
Will do.
State your name and address for the record, and please speak clearly and slowly.
Deborah Vine Smith, Colonial Avenue, Cumberland, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
So my comment is research that I've done and I had forwarded to the town council. So I'm gonna voice my concerns again with you all. I cannot picture American Ramp Company placing a lighted looping asphalt pathway at Diamond Hill Park. Cutouts from the Diamond Hill Conservation and Management Plan mention.
Yeah.
So,
Excuse me,
open-
ma'am.
Yes,
I'm sorry, your voice is somewhat garbled, and the court reporter cannot hear you clearly.
okay. So the cutouts from the Diamond Hill Conservation and Management Plan say that the open space area of the park lie within a hydrological connected area of groundwater and surface water. Maintaining this land as open space provides water quality protection benefits to the water supply by filtering potential pollutants and preventing other land disturbing activities. I repeat, preventing other land disturbing activities. Also noted, according to the Park and Recreation Director, he said that this would impose on the park's neighbors and lower their quality of life. Asked about the potential for significant Saturday traffic when a new competition level pump track is built, Farley said it would be a bad situation. It's going to be a big problem. Definitely a big problem. This was quoted in the Valley Breeze. Moving along, I want to mention a state law, chapter 4535, section 4535-3. Free access to public land not restricted. Okay, so with that being mentioned, it says no town or city may deny or restrict to the people free access to the lands or to any other land held by or for the city or town for recreation purposes. I mention this because this is a public park and we do not want it to be treated as a spectator event only, venue only destination. Also, I would like to add that the Park and Recreation Commission never went before the town council with this suggestion. Having said that, there is a state law, section 32-3-10. The commission from time to time will make recommendations and submit such plans to the town council as to what is proper relative to the improvement and beautification of public parks and places in the town, to the preservation of objects and places of special interest therein, whether owing to their natural attractiveness, their historical association, or otherwise in relative to general development enhancement of natural beauties of the town. Again, enhancement of natural beauties. So having said that, in a town council meeting, it was mentioned that the mayor noted that the Cumberland Land Trust did not weigh in on this. The CCC never discussed this either. The mayor mentioned he doesn't like to predispose anything, but he did comment noise is good. In reference to the presuppose, it had to do with light pollution. Having mentioned the track in itself, Jesse Braden on February 1st, 2023 mentioned that the asphalt will be used for Cumberland's event, I repeat, event-ready competitive track that might include the involvement with Red Bull. I repeat, a competitive track that would be involved with Red Bull. Now, having said that, I did some research on this and found out that through a website that a competitive track is not suitable for a public park, nor is it safe for general use. They are not beginner friendly. Again, not beginner friendly. And it mentions here, if there is an area of over 1,500 meters square available, it should be considered one builds two or several different tracks, a normal pump track, a kids track, a jump track. So I then mentioned I thought the Cumberland Town Council was being misled into thinking that this public park pump track was safe for everyone, when it in fact is not. Especially as I had mentioned before, they want it to be event ready and they want Red Bull to be involved. So with that being said, also it mentioned in the discussion with the town about French drains. French drains would have to be sloped in such a way, and I only fear that it would be sloped towards the public drinking water, as I mentioned before. If you're not aware, Sylvie's Brook feeds into the Arnold's Mill Reservoir. Again, Sylvie's Brook feeds into the Arnold's Mill Reservoir. So in a nutshell, I feel that the competitive track is not a right fit. It does not fit into the character of Diamond Hill Park, which is supposed to be a free and accessible park for everyone. And I just don't think it's the place. And I again feel that we are being misled. It is not safe for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to ask Ms. Smith to send her comments to Mr. Modica by email, because I don't think the court reporter was able to get all of her comments, and that we'll attach them for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Salvatore. I was thinking the same thing, and I was going to ask for the same thing. So, ma'am, if you could submit your comments to the planning director in writing so that we can make it part of the record.
Would you like me to respond? So I was trying to collect a few of those, obviously a little difficult to collect. The first one was mentioning the conservation, I guess I'll refer to it as a covenant. That specific covenant does not apply to this portion of Diamond Hill Park. So the next question that was, or the next comment that was brought up was water quality. Water quality is being attenuated within the water quality swale that is provided. We provide design calculations and TSS removal for that. This project, as proven through the TSS calculations that we did, is a net benefit to water quality at Diamond Hill Park. The next question was the recreation. Oh, I apologize. The recreation of existing hydrology, as is the regulation within RIDEM. We have done so by swaling the existing flows off of the slope around the pump track and then dissipated those flows with check dams. So the wet swale that we also provided also has peak flow attenuation properties. So peak flows are being reduced as a net reduction in peak flows off of this area of Diamond Hill Park. So a net benefit in water quality and a net benefit in both flows and volume. I believe the next comment regarded public access. Public access is at 3 locations sort of around or outside of the pump track area. There is one trail that runs across below the base of the pump track, down gradient of the base of the pump track. That is being undisturbed. All grading takes place above that. There is one trail that comes in more or less to the center of the pump track. We do provide on the plans access showing how pedestrians would route around that to get to various portions around Diamond Hill Park. So we do provide proof that the public will still be able to have easy access around the park and around the pump track itself. In terms of safety, I would just reiterate the American Ramp Company has taken great liberty in providing a safe design for the public to use. We would not be putting a pump track here if it was not vetted for safety concerns. And American Ramp Company has taken the liberty of taking those considerations in mind when providing this design. Other things that have to do, I believe I heard Red Bull sponsored events, competitive pump track events. The only thing that I would say to that effect is that just like any other event that goes on at Diamond Hill Park, an event like that would need to be permitted and go through the proper vetting processes that everything like Cumberland Days, for example, has to go through. So I don't see too many of the issues that this concerned citizen has mentioned as necessarily relevant to the approval of this pump track.
Mr. Monaco, is there anybody else in the queue?
There is. Would anyone else on Zoom like to speak to this matter? If you do, there's a raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. And there are none, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or comments regarding this item? Yes.
Yes, Michael Darbo. I'm sorry. I just felt, my name is Michael Darvo. I am a land surveyor. My office at the Post Office Box 7918. This has nothing to do with land surveying, other than the fact that I am an avid mountain biker, and I've used the places at Diamond Hill a number of times. I think the pump track will be a great addition. It's something that draws people to the community, and from there, services, businesses, and so forth. So I think it will be a great asset to the community. It's a great thing for everybody. I'm an older mountain biker, so I take it easy compared to some other ones. My son, maybe not so much. But it's a great learning tool, especially for beginner mountain bikers and so forth. It's not necessarily for competitive people only and competitive events and so forth. It can be to anybody to learn how to do it, how to do some proper technique and so forth, so that you can learn some of the safety features that you should know as a mountain biker. So mountain biking is an up-and-coming sport for younger kids and so forth. There's starting to be high school competitive leagues and so forth for mountain biking events, not necessarily pump track stuff. It's just one tool, so to speak, of learning how to be a better biker, which probably everybody could do. Okay?
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has any questions or comments? Okay, I'll restrict the comments to the board at this point. Mr. Monaco, do you have anything else to add, or Ms. Salvatore?
I would just say if someone was making that motion, you could add the conditions of the appropriate bench placement and trash receptacles as approved by the administrative officer.
Okay. All right. Board have any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to the Diamond Hill pump track, that we find that it is consistent with the provisions of the land development and subdivision regulations, and therefore approve the formal development plan with the recommendations that the town develop a plan for the appropriate placement of trash receptacles and seating, which will be approved by the administrative officer.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. D'Ambrosia. Any other discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McDonald?
before we move on, can I have the floor for a moment? I want to ask the solicitor a question.
Sure.
Thank you. That's all right. Are we mandated to still provide remote access and participation?
Are you required? No.
Okay.
The town, for town council meetings, zoning board meetings, and planning board meetings, we still provide the hybrid access.
Okay.
I think what I would suggest going forward is that on the agenda, perhaps there's a note to say it would be helpful if written comment is provided for those attending virtually. Because it's Andy's first time here, but I know he's going to have trouble just with the, with the technology. He's going to have a hard time hearing people.
This is a wonderful and historic room, but it's not conducive to that type of technology. And what just happened may be an anomaly because of the phone that lady was using or her diction. But Mr. D'Angelo is another ingredient now in meetings. And it was painful to watch him attempt to keep up with what she was saying.
I agree, but I
So-
think the town wants to balance participation by members of the public. And, the town spent a lot of money redesigning the technology in this room to provide access to town meetings. So we're trying to balance, I understand what you're saying, but we're trying to balance access to public meetings so that people can attend, even if they can't be here.
Well, can,
Because I have to tell you that these cases can go on appeal in the court.
Oh, I know,
I know you, but I'm supposed to take down verbatim.
I know.
If I can't get that, I can't submit any comments that are sent to this lower level along with my transcript.
I know.
I have to get it verbatim. Well, this was a town application, that's one thing. But what's coming forward, if I can't get what's coming from I don't know how I can sit here and certify a record with a verbatim transcript, which I know is not verbatim.
Right, but we are still taking audio, and that's what's required by law, whether it's a zoning board or a planning board.
And that's what I was going to ask, videographer. Can you hear audio clear enough?
I mean, so I do tons of Zoom calls. Any audio coming from a far side is going to sound like that. Doesn't matter if you're on a phone, if you're on a computer, if you're on a laptop.
We shouldn't really be talking without talking into the microphone, by the way, because people are listening.
Okay.
well, I didn't mean for this to be extemporaneous
No,
from the meeting, but if, and I'm not trying to preclude anybody's right from participating in a public hearing, but if we're having something like this, I'll pose the the thought of mandating that people provide written testimony if they testify audibly and remotely, and do so within a certain number of days. And even that might make it difficult for Mr. But this doesn't, this might be a problem, and maybe, again, this is an anomaly, but we can't be sitting here watching him being unable to do his job.
No, I understand that, but with all due respect, the state law requires an audio recording of the meeting, period. We think it's important to also have a stenographer here. So we think it's helpful, and if there is an appeal, it's really helpful because he's going to transcribe as much as he possibly can, and then we can, as attorneys, we can reference the page and line number of where the person was speaking. But again, I think the town, and it's not my decision, I'm just stating what I hear, the town wants to provide as much access to public meetings as we can, and that's the position of the town. So.
Okay, the only other comment I have is if the meeting produces an audio and video that is inconsistent or does not match up with the product that Mr. D'Angelo produces because of comments, is it leaving its, I'm not an attorney, but is it leaving itself in a less favorable position if somebody appeals, if they've got two separate renditions of a public meeting?
I mean, that would be for lawyers to argue about. I would, if it were me, frankly, and I didn't think, because this happens in depositions when everybody's in the room, sometimes the court reporter does not get it right, and people have the ability to go back and make corrections. So in that particular case, if the audio said something that the court reporter did not take down, they would refer to the audio. I mean, again, not my decision. Maybe next month we come back and there's no access. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just telling you that that has been the position of the town, that the most attended meetings, the meetings that people seem to be most interested in attending, planning, zoning, and town council, and that's what the town has decided to provide virtually.
Well, up to this point, anyone that was presenting anything virtually, for all practical purposes, I could understand what the person was saying. Tonight was the first time that it was very difficult for even me to understand what that person was saying. I don't know if it was on their end what was causing the issue.
Well,
because,
I mean, somebody could
Yeah.
stand up here and you could have difficulty understanding what they're saying in person.
True.
Andy, it's not, I'm just telling you, legally, all we have to produce is an audio recording. You being here is a benefit because we're going to get most, if not all, of the testimony and the comments transcribed. Again, I'm not,
Most of what she said at all.
okay,
I can tell you that right now.
and I understand that.
I cannot create a transcript of what just happened. So if I have to certify a record, Ms. Morris, I respectfully, I will not continue to do this job under these circumstances. I cannot certify a record to the court. My reputation stands on it. There's no way I can certify what just happened.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to sit here and debate you all night.
I really do.
Okay. Moving along. Mr. Modica, is this the right order that you gave in the?
So, Mr. Chair, if we may, can we move item number 11 to the next agenda item?
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with item 11. Yes. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, can we take a few-minute break for a second?
Certainly, we'll take a
Okay,
brief
thank you.
recess. We'll reconvene the meeting at 7:49 PM. The next item on the agenda is going to be item 11, public meeting, town council recommendation, ordinance number 24-10, project name, proposed duplex, owner applicant JM and Sons Properties LLC, location 28 Vivian Avenue, assessors plat 53 lot 55, zoning R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant requests a rezoning of the subject property from R1 to R2. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to give an overview of the next 4 items, which are a little complicated. You know, most of them, they're involving special use permits, variances, zone changes, and land development and review. And they involve the new regulations and the new zoning ordinance. So that adds another layer of complexity. So tonight, this is just going to be a discussion about these projects. I did not have enough time to prepare staff reports with findings of fact. So tonight, the board won't be taking any action on any of these items. Instead, it'll be more about getting a handle on all the regulatory issues and having a discussion with the applicant. So for 28 Vivian Avenue, the applicant is requesting a rezone from R1, which is single family, to R2 for 2-family. This neighborhood is solidly single family. There is a triple decker next door, built about 100 years ago. But the comprehensive plan clearly states, and this would be to increase the residential density on a lot from one house to 2. So, but the comprehensive plan clearly states that the town should not be rezoning to create more housing and density. Instead, the comprehensive plan makes clear that rezone should only occur for affordable housing or when senior housing is being created. As you know, over the past 2 years, this board has been very, very favorable to approving affordable housing projects and comprehensive permits. In terms of the zoning, the details, the lot size, right here, with this lot size, 1 additional affordable unit would be allowed by right. So they can legally go with a comprehensive permit and have 2 units here. This lot is only 5,000 square feet. A single family is allowed by right. But in an R2 zone, which they're requesting, the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet for the first unit and 5,000 square feet for the additional units. So they would need 15,000 square feet to put up a 2-family. So there's not enough land area here. Like I said, the legal means to create greater density is through the comprehensive permit. To consider rezoning this lot for 2 market rates, I think means that anyone else in town who is zoned for R1, they can come in and ask to be zoned to R2, or why not ask for 3? And for the record, so what I'm going to say here is going to apply to the next 3 agenda items.
Glenn, before you continue, did you call all 4 agenda items?
No.
So why don't you list all 4 agenda items before he continues, just so that everyone understands that you're talking about all 4 generally?
Okay.
I know this project has to recuse on 3. That's why we took this one first. So if you call all 4.
Oh, gee, yeah, so, okay, I didn't realize that. I thought you were talking about the last, you're talking about the last one. Okay, so after this, you're going to talk about just, what is it? But she has to recuse on all of them, on the other ones. So I would say limit your comments to the
For this application.
yeah, which is 28 Vivian?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take back what I said. What I'm going to say applies only for this application. So we know we need more housing in Cumberland and the entire state. So if this is being proposed in the name of creating more housing, there are a lot more thoughtful, holistic, and equitable ways where many property owners can share in that benefit. You know, floating around the planning world are plenty of conventional and unconventional ways to solve the housing problem. There's accessory dwelling units, there's more new state legislation coming down this year, tiny homes, adapting shipping containers, modular houses. Many cities, and I'm not saying we do this, have eliminated single-family zoning entirely. Providence is right now in the process of changing some of their R1 zones to R2, changing R2 to R3, and creating a new R4 zone, which would allow apartment buildings. We can reduce minimum lot size. We've talked about Valley Falls, a mixed-use overlay district there to create more housing and more affordable housing. The point is we need to take a more comprehensive look town-wide at different neighborhoods and identify areas or districts that are suitable to accommodate more housing. I think something like this, for one particular lot, rezoning this one parcel to benefit one owner is not the way to do it. Here, once you open that door, then it needs to be applied consistently to everyone. And I don't think it'd be beneficial to the town or to the neighbors who knowingly bought homes in a single-family district. Thank you.
Board have any questions for Mr. Modica? I'm having a little bit difficulty reading this plan because it's reduced. And I'm not quite sure what the dimension is from the proposed building to, if you're looking at from Vivian, would be the back lot?
It's the corner of Vivian and Governor.
Yeah, well, is that 4 feet? Am I reading that?
It's 4 feet. In this case, they would apply for a building permit, and if they needed a variance, they would have to go before the zoning board for the variance. So we have more information, I think, than we need. We're not reviewing the plan for this one.
Yeah, I'm just looking at how close this building is to the one next door.
It doesn't meet the setback. It's 1 foot short. It's 1 foot encroaching.
Okay. With that, we'll hear from the applicant.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Charles Redahan. I'm an attorney representing the applicant who is here with us tonight. Additionally, we have Mr. Michael Darvo, the land surveyor who prepared the site plan, and Mr. Darvo, I believe, is going to make a brief presentation of that site plan. I know what you're looking at are reduced copies, and perhaps that will add a little bit of clarity. Very simply put, the applicant is seeking a zone change from R1 to R2 for purposes of constructing a two-family dwelling. And the reason for that really is to bring more housing to the town. The applicant, and I know you'll hear from this applicant more tonight based on the other items on the agenda, has invested time, has invested a lot of capital in this town, and more than anything, they've invested in the future of this town. They'd like to build this multifamily that could serve potentially a home for one of their employees or someone else in this town. Now, certainly they could have pursued a lower moderate income housing through comprehensive permit. Why that was not amenable to them was not for financial reasons. It's not the difference between market rate and what they would have gotten if these were lower moderate income housing units. It's the restrictions that come with it. If the applicant would like to rent these units to employees, to family members, to friends, they would be restricted by the income limitations. And even if initially those friends or family members or employees met the income limitations, if they improved in their career or got a bonus, got a new job, they would not be able to remain in that space. It's more about their freedom and flexibility of who they'd be able to rent to. So we are asking, like I said, for the change from R1 to R2. As Mr. Modica referenced, there is right next door a triple-decker multifamily house over on Grand Avenue, which is the street parallel to Vivian. There is also a multifamily, which is 24 Grand Avenue. The neighborhood is a mixture of residential and commercial. When you drive down Grand Avenue, as you'll hear about later this evening, it is a corridor of commercial spaces, commercial properties, integrated into a residential space. This multifamily development, if allowed, would integrate well into this space. The applicants are willing to invest the money that is necessary to make sure that the harmony between this space and the commercial space behind it is maintained. As to the argument that people that moved into the neighborhood didn't sign up for this or weren't aware, I would argue that one additional unit on the property is not going to create the traffic or any other impact that would significantly impact abutters or neighbors in that way. As I mentioned before, I do have Mr. Michael Darvo here, who prepared the site plans, and Mr. Darvo is prepared to provide you with a bit of an overview. I believe we're going to be able to project the plan onto the screen, so if we could do that now. Mr. Darvo?
You're just doing 28 Vivian.
Just
right?
28 Vivian.
So you want the site plan, Mike?
Please.
Oh, I don't think I included that one. I do have it, though. Give me a sec.
Here we go.
Can we just focus on the lot?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that should do fine.
Is that okay?
I think so,
All right.
yes. Hi, Michael Darvo, professional land surveyor, president of Darvo Land Surveying, PO Box 7918, Cumberland, Rhode Island. It's been a while, but I have been in front of this board a few times. Good to be back. I want to just explain property, it's not going to work, at the intersection of Vivian Avenue and Governor Street, known as 28 Vivian Avenue. The property has 100 feet of frontage on Vivian, 50 feet on Governor, a 5,000 square foot lot. What we are proposing to do is put a two-family building, which will be approximately 25 or 26 feet by 70 feet wide, parallel, in essence, to Vivian Avenue. They'll be located 20 feet off of Vivian Avenue, which will provide 20 feet also, 20.5 feet off of Governor Street. The other two setbacks will be 7.5 off of the line that is perpendicular to Vivian Avenue and 4 feet off the line that is perpendicular to Governor Avenue. The 20 feet off of Vivian Avenue is to allow for two vehicles to be parked in front of the building. The building is proposed to have garages, but a lot of people don't park in their garages, so we want to make sure there's also additional parking spaces on site that don't have to impact the street. So there's provisions for actually four total parking spaces, 2 for each unit. That would be off of Vivian Avenue. The site also incorporates stormwater controls for the new roof area. It would be in the form of a vegetated swale, which would be 8 inches deep, 7 feet, almost 8 feet wide by 40 feet long. So that's basically just a little depression area in the grass. It's all grass, doesn't need to have plantings like a rain garden and all that maintenance. Vegetated swales are similar to rain gardens without those plants in essence. So that is what we're proposing at this time. It meets all of the Rhode Island residential stormwater design guidance document provided by DEM and so forth for this new roof area. The parking spots will have permeable pavers, so that will take care of the stormwater controls there. The property will have access to public water and sewer, and in essence, it's a building construction permit that will be required, correct? Yeah.
Does the board have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, can I just add, so I just want to, I forgot to mention this after Mr. Redahan spoke, regarding people living there who earn too much money and then they have to leave. That's something I had thought, and that's something I had presented to the board, but a few weeks ago I spoke with someone at Housing Network of Rhode Island. So in situations like that, when a household is making more than 80% of area median income, they can stay, but then that unit becomes market rate, and the owner can charge market rate. The unit still stays on our sheet, on our tally, as an affordable unit, and then when that tenant moves out, the owner has to charge an affordable rate. So anyone who keeps earning money can stay. That's just the point.
Just to clarify, so when the tenant initially moves in, their income has to be at 80% or below.
Correct.
And then they get a raise, they get a new job, their income goes to 90, 100%, 110%. They don't get kicked out, they can stay, but once they leave, it goes back to the next tenant has to be 80% or below.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. McDonald?
does the owner of a property with affordable housing have a right annually to ask for verification of tenants' income?
You have to.
They have to.
For low and moderate income housing, there would be a monitoring agent. So when you apply for a comprehensive permit or when you want to deed restrict a property, you have to engage a monitoring agent so that, and they monitor who's living there.
All right, I wasn't questioning the process. My question was, are those who are in affordable housing units, are they required or can they be required to disclose their income annually to ensure that they're still below?
Yeah, and I'm just saying that it would probably be with the monitoring agent.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Aside from a zoning change, do we have any idea how many other variances this project would be asking for? I know some of them are listed in the.
Well, it would certainly need a variance for minimum lot size, because it's not even close. It would need the variance for the side yard setback. I have not looked into any other potential variances, but I think the minimum lot size here is a big hurdle.
Okay.
Anyone else have, Mr. Butler?
I guess it's just more, it's not a question, it's a comment. I did drive by the site last night, so I could certainly picture in my mind, there's kind of a new development on Smithfield Avenue in Pawtucket that has duplexes with a little driveway and not much of a backyard, so that's kind of what I pictured this would probably look like. So I could picture it there, especially with the triple decker next door. But I do agree with Mr. Modica's initial comments that there is a housing crisis, and that's driving a lot of legislative initiatives, and everyone's got their hair on fire to build new housing, which I think is appropriate because, you know, nobody can buy a house right now. But that having been said, I don't think that we can throw out all the rules. And we've had the same conversation a couple of months ago with another applicant. You can't throw out all the rules just for the sake of building more housing. Like, it has to make sense for the neighborhood, for the town. And I think we do have to be weary of creating precedents, that if you say, yeah, you can have an undersized lot and we'll change it from R1, R2, because, this town really needs more housing. How many more people are gonna come rushing to town hall and say, hey, I got an undersized lot that's not developed, and, it's not worth it for me to put a single family, but if you'll give me an R2 and an R3, that makes sense for me financially, and, let's do that. So I think it has to be part of a much bigger strategy. I think the town has to have a strategy regarding these kinds of requests. Again, in particular, I could visualize, as I was standing in front of the property last night, that it would fit there, what it would look like. It wouldn't necessarily disrupt the neighborhood, because there is a lot of commercial on the other side, on Grand Ave. So I think it's more of a bigger concern of the number of variances that would be required, and just the precedent, especially if it's not an affordable project, of saying to somebody, yes, we'll just rezone your property solely for the sake of getting an extra unit in town. I think if it's affordable housing, then perhaps, there's more to the conversation for me. But even then, I think the town has to we as a board, as a town, we have to develop a strategy around, we can't just keep approving development simply to add 1 or 2 units here or 1 or 2 units there.
Yeah, I am afraid of opening Pandora's box, actually. Because I can see, just, Mr. Butler, just like you say, once you, open it up, you're not gonna be able to close it. Yeah, it's just gonna snowball. Bless you.
And I agree with you also. I can think of Mr. Scow, something he said several months ago. We instituted all these rules and ordinances for a reason, and now we're gonna just throw them out the window. So I think it's something we need to think about it seriously. I agree with you, Mr. Kutu. Once we open the door, we'll never be able to shut it. It's open forever. My thoughts.
Anyone else? Mr. Bush?
Yeah, without reiterating all that, I agree completely with what Mr. Butler said.
Same here.
Since I live in the neighborhood, I would like to give my opinion. And my opinion is, when this man moved in this area, he beautified the area. He did beautiful things. He's very helpful with the neighbors, okay? Very respectful, okay? And what he wants to do on the other side, on Vivian Avenue, I think he will beautify that too, okay? Now, what I don't understand, if he can build a single-family house there, and now he cannot build the duplex there because of the situation. Another thing that I don't like and I don't understand, okay, he wants to do something there, and then, matter of fact, he's not in charge of it once he builds it. The town going to tell him, or the state going to tell him who to take there, who not to take there, what to charge, what not to charge there. This is pure communism. This is America. This is America, and communism out the window.
Anyone else? Okay. I think the applicants heard from us on the comments regarding this particular proposal at this point. I don't know if there's anything else to add to that. But it's something that we, as a board, need to take and chew on for a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make one final remark.
Sure.
I would simply say that I can understand the difficulty in encountering this this application before you, but I think that if you look at the unique character of the neighborhood, and with all applications that come before you, you consider the neighborhood in which the proposed development is in. This is a neighborhood where there is multifamily houses already. This is a neighborhood where there are commercial properties in the rear, so that it wouldn't damage the harmony of the residential aspect of the neighborhood. I would strongly encourage you rather to consider this proposal for that reason. And I would say that, lastly, as I mentioned, it's not the finances behind it. It comes down to the applicant's desire to be able to have some control over potential renters, even if they are perhaps above the income thresholds when they begin their tenancy. Certainly, the scenario that Mr. Modica outlined would work out well for them financially, but the finances, frankly, are not the reason why they're pursuing this as opposed to the comprehensive permit. So I would encourage you to strongly consider this, as I know you will, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
May I say something? Brian Cody, I'm the petitioner. So part of the reason why we want to do a duplex there rather than just a single family is basically we own all the commercial property next to it. Our plan is basically to rent that property out and control it. If I were to build a single family there, we would not be able to rent it out. We would basically build the single family, sell it. Now I have a tenant or a homeowner that basically their backyard is my commercial property. So the purpose of building a duplex there is we can rent it, we can control it. The tenants understand that they're renting next to a commercial property, and there's harmony in that rather than having a homeowner whose backyard is my commercial property. That's part of the reason why we want to have control and put a duplex there rather than a single family. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I guess you built a single family, someone buying it would know they're buying next to your commercial property, correct? I mean,
correct, but at the same time, I don't have control over the homeowner where I have control over a renter, and I can manage that better than somebody coming in, buying it, and then having an issue with their backyard being my business. That's my philosophy, and that's why we're trying to manage that and not have issues.
May I add one thing, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Modica.
That single-family homes can be rented. There are single-family homes in Cumberland that are rentals.
For me, and I look at it at the future, this is what's planned for now. 10, 20 years from now, we may have different ownership. Things change. 20 years from now, I won't be here, so it's not my problem. But I think I've always had in the back of my mind is not just the present and the merits, or in some cases, the things that you might subtract from it. But moving forward as time goes on and land, ownership changes, then we've got a situation where you don't have control. So it's something that I think this board needs to kind of digest at this point in time and try to make sense of what we think is in the best interest of the town. So with that being said.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add one singular point just in reference to what you spoke of a moment ago. I can say that the applicant and his father run a family business. They have been here for the past half decade. They've invested greatly in this town in time and capital, and they look for the future of their investment in this town. Mr. Cody, who just spoke, has young children. Perhaps someday they could take over the business from him. I think that there are no guarantees, obviously, but they are looking long-term. They are looking not in the short, what this will be years from now, but decades from now. Their legacy in this town and, frankly, their children's legacy in this town as well. So I would just ask you to consider that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, but it definitely, as I, drove down Grand Avenue and around that neighborhood last night, I mean, it's very clear that Mr. Cody has, I mean, they seem like newer buildings. I mean, they're very nice. I mean, they fit fairly well in that neighborhood. And so for me, it has nothing to do with Mr. Cody or, it really is kind of the bigger picture. And as Mr. Kudu said, we all think we're going to be around forever. We all think we're going to own our businesses forever. Sometimes life intervenes and things don't work out the way that we think they might. And so 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's a whole different situation. And I think that as a planning board, that's what we also have to take into consideration is it might make sense today, but will it make sense? Will the people who follow us look back and say, what were these guys and lady thinking? How did this ever, happen? So, but I just wanted to say, it has nothing to do with Mr. Cody, and it does look like he runs very good businesses, and the construction or the remodeling that's been done is, seems to be of a very good quality, and, certainly adds to the neighborhood, as Roger said.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Costa?
Mr. Cody, you sound pretty adamant about the fact you want to control and manage the duplex in the house. What are you referring to when you say manage? Because you'll be under, if it's affordable housing, you'll be under the umbrella of.
So we're trying not to do it with affordable housing because, well, another reason I was going to come up and say is we don't want to do affordable housing. So with affordable housing, you're deeding it 99 years affordable housing. So that affects my kids' kids. So if my kids take over, their kids take over, that property is still deeded affordable housing. Is that correct?
Does it have to be 99 years?
That's 99 years.
It's at least 30, I believe.
So that's what we were told the requirement was 99 years.
Because isn't the one we approved over here 20 years?
It has to be a minimum of 30 years. Oftentimes, you require 99 because 30 years goes by in a flash. But it has to be a minimum of 30 years.
I think you're talking about the one up on Mendon,
No, the one over on
Hatch.
Hatch, yeah. It might have been 30. For some reason, I thought it was 20. 'Cause it seemed like a very fast
We always
time.
require 99, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Costa.
Did
Is
that
there any?
answer your question?
Excuse me?
Did that answer your question? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McDonald?
In light of Mr. Butler's comments, it would be helpful if we knew how many vacant lots there are in town in R1, maybe in R2 zones. The idea of approving something like this and possibly putting the town on a path to being inundated with similar requests would certainly help to know what the number is, what the potential number is.
I do think, though, it would have to be, I don't think the lot has to be vacant. You could have an existing home that you could add on another unit in an R1 zone if it's changed to R2. It's not just vacant lots.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that. That kind of magnifies the problem, the issue, not the problem. Because I'm sympathetic to building housing, but I'll leave it at that.
Is there anyone here in the audience that has any questions or comments? Mr. Modica, anybody in the queue?
Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak to this matter? You can hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen.
This discussion.
And we do not.
Nothing?
No, sir.
Okay. So, Ms. Salvatore, you mentioned that we should take the next items, 8, 9, and 10, and announce them together. Am I correct?
Yeah, so this one did not need to be advertised, so you don't have to take a motion to continue. I just want to be sure. Okay. And your intention is to digest this and come back next month and make a recommendation,
Yes.
correct? Okay. So yeah, so the next three, Ms. Verosik, I believe, is recusing. So you could read them all together, and then he can make general comments. Take it that way.
Okay. All right, I'll start with item number 8, public hearing, major land development, unified development review of preliminary plan and town council recommendation, ordinance number 24-09. Project name, existing garage, owner applicant B&J Grand Properties LLC, location 26 Grand Avenue, assessors plat 53, lot 95. Zoning is R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant is requesting the property be rezoned from R1 to C2 and proposes to convert the building's vacant second floor to residential use. And then item number 9 is public hearing, major land development, unified development review of master plan and town council recommendation. Also ordinance number 2409, project name, proposed mixed use. Owner applicant is JM and Sons Properties LLC, location 28 Grand Avenue, assessors plat 53, lots 93 and 94. Zoning is R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant is requesting the property be rezoned from R1 to C2 and proposes to construct a new building on the property to include a commercial use on the first floor and 2 apartments on the second floor. And finally, item number 10 is a public meeting, town council recommendation, ordinance 24-09, project name, existing big building. Owner applicant Tap Auto Realty LLC, location 25 Grand Avenue, assessors plat 53, lot 69, zoning R1 with public water and public sewer. The applicant requests a rezoning of the subject property from R1 to C2. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some quick housekeeping on the agenda regarding 25 Grand Avenue. I should have classified that as a minor land development that requires unified development review under the new regulations. I missed that trying to get a handle on these new regs. But that should not disrupt properly advertising this and properly getting it on next month's agenda for a butter notice. So I want to start just by giving you an overview of these 3 projects. It took me quite a while to sort it out, figure out what was going on, where. That's kind of why I gave them these simplified names. Thought it might help. So anyway, I'm going to run through. Get this off my screen. Okay, I hope you can see that. It's a little hard to see, but this is the overview of all 4 projects. Let me zoom in here. All right. So we have, just to orient you, so if you think of it in a clockwise manner, 25 Grand Avenue is the big building, the existing big building. 26 Grand Avenue is the existing garage, where they're proposing to put in 1 unit. And 28 Grand Avenue is the vacant parcel where they're proposing the mixed use. So this is your big building, 25 Grand Avenue. These are all part of this zoning ordinance 2409. Here's our garage, 26 Grand Avenue, commercial on the ground floor, proposed apartment on the second floor. And then we have 28 Grand Avenue, which is the mixed use, which is our vacant lot. And here's 28 Vivian, which we don't need anymore. Again, here is the site. Here is the overall site plan. Here. Okay. So again, if you could see that. We have 25 Grand Avenue, the big building. We have the garage over here, and then we have the proposed building down here. So they're all right near each other. So I think I want to go to our zoning map, just to give you an overview of our zoning in the area. So The subject properties are outlined in green. R1 is yellow. The pinkish red is C1, commercial. So you can see, I mean, most of this area, nearly all of this area that's surrounding these properties is zoned single-family residential, and the actual use within this area is single-family residential. It's just unusual. These subject properties are kind of a donut hole of commercial use within a greater R1 area. So now I want to talk about the specifics. Each property here, I'm going to be general and specific as best I can, because there's a common thread with all of these. I'm going to start with 25 grand, which is the big building. So all three of these, they need special use permits. And last year, the planning board, the new special use permits have to have a specific and objective criteria. And we developed new specific and objective criteria for a couple dozen different uses. In this case, common to all three of these projects are going to be special use permits for auto repair and special use permits for contract construction. So those are going to be your use codes number 59 and 63. For each one of these projects, they're going to need to meet the special use criteria. And in reviewing the special use criteria, it's just a yes or no question. Does this project meet it or does it not? There are no variances or waivers. It's that straightforward. Maybe I'll just stop sharing for a sec here. It might be easier. So in terms of auto repair and the special use criteria here, the commonality among all three of these projects is going to be adhering to the land development regulations in terms of landscaping. Article 7 and Article 8 of the regulations speak to landscaping and lot design standards. So in general, street trees are required for all land development projects, and parking areas should be screened and landscaped. So this is going to apply for 25, 26, 28. They're not showing currently meeting these regulations. Some of these lots a little more constrained because they're paved, they're more built out, but to meet the regulations, they're going to have to tweak the plans a bit to show some landscaping. Also, what's common to all three of these projects is, again, related to landscaping in terms of the contract construction special use criteria. So all three of these need to meet the special use criteria for contract construction. There's two criteria. One is screening along the side and rear lot lines. So all of these properties need to be screened along the side and rear lot lines with shrubs, fence, some sort of vegetation. Again, all three of these properties need to meet the 50-foot buffer between C2 and residential. What the buffer means is that's the distance between the residential property line and the commercial use. So here we can consider it here the distance between the property line and the building. And none of these meet that 50-foot buffer. There's a lot of pre-existing non-conforming. The new construction doesn't meet it. So this buffer has to provide a year-round screen at least 6 feet high. And it can be a fence, it can be vegetation, or it can be a combination of both. Speaking now specifically to the big building at 25 Grand Avenue, there's also variances. All of these projects are going to need variances as well. This one, there's also a variance for the 50-foot buffer between commercial and residential. All of these projects also do not meet the parking space requirements. The parking has to be set back 10 feet from the front and the side lot lines, and they have to be set back 5 feet from a building. There are pre-existing non-conforming conditions here at number 25 in terms of lot coverage, where 50% is allowed. It appears it's near 100%. And that's all I got here. But let me go back. So here's the existing building over here. So this was 28 Vivian Avenue, where it said proposed building. This is where the one we just discussed. There's another lot in between, which is being used by 25 Grand Avenue as an accessory use. There's kind of a covered storage shed to store vehicles and equipment. So at the end of the day, if these projects move forward, these two lots are going to need to be merged, because this is an accessory use. It needs to be merged with its principal use. Okay, I'm going to move on. Is there any questions so far in terms of the overall? Are we catching? Okay, I'll keep going. So I'm going to talk about 26 Grand Avenue. This is the existing garage where the applicant would like to put an apartment on the second floor. So again, like I said, common criteria this application needs to meet has to do with the landscaping requirements of the regulations, the screening along the side and rear lot lines, and the 50-foot buffer. It also does not meet some other individual requirements. So minimum lot size for auto repair has to be 20,000 square feet. This lot is 7,500 square feet. Auto repair lots have to have 100-foot frontage. This one has 75 feet. And the others are the same. 28 grand is the new build. This is a 10,000 square foot lot. Again, special use permit criteria for auto repair needs 20,000 minimum lot size. This is 10,000. Again, all the screening and the buffers are not met. Okay, so the minimum lot size in C2 is 5,000 square feet. This lot is 10,000 square feet. It's twice the size of what's minimally required. So for me, there seems like there's an opportunity here to meet the zoning ordinance for parking and setbacks. And honestly, I'm not sure how to interpret this plan. This seems to be a very large building for the site. It requires 11 spaces for the business parking, 4 for the residential, so they need 15 parking spaces total. They have 11 spaces along the street, along Grand Avenue and Governor, but they appear to be, they're either right up against the building or they're right up against the right-of-way, and they need to be 10 feet from the right-of-way, 5 feet from a building. They are proposing 8 spaces inside the building, and I'm unclear how this works. If you have an auto repair, why would employees also be parking in the shop? If this is an office, as some of their uses are requesting, I don't know, would employees park right next to their desk? So I think the applicant, it would help to explain the site plan. And that's all I got for the individual ones.
The board have any questions for Mr. Modica?
I have a part 2, but if you
Oh,
have
you
any
have
questions.
no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wasn't quite sure.
Is this the only one that requires a special use permit?
All 3 do.
All 3?
All 3 require special use permits. All 3 require variances for parking and setbacks. So let's look at our C2 zones, right? Because this is what they're asking. They want this property to be rezoned C2. So C2 is highway commercial. In Cumberland, they just exist along state highways of Mendon Road You know, anomalies down here are Berkeley Commons. Down here is Berkeley Commons. I have no idea why that is C2. And here's your Stop and Shop Center down here. And some of this is Lonsdale Worker Housing, which is also another anomaly. But for the most part, well, pretty much for all parts, they're located on major highways, and that's where C2 belongs. Because these are uses and facilities that cater primarily to vehicular traffic. They provide services for non-pedestrian oriented retail, wholesale, service and repair activities. They include service facilities for autos and trucks, motels, fast food, fuel supply, building material supply, all establishments that offer either accommodations or services for motorists. So my concern here is in allowing an intensity of uses in this residential neighborhood. In terms of the mixed use that they're requesting, use code number 12 to combine residential with these 4 other uses. They also want to put limited business, general business, the auto repair, and the contract constructing services. What our comp plan says, you know, is mixed uses. Well, what's a mixed use? Mixed use can be a mix of residential and commercial. It can apply to just the building. You could have commercial on the ground floor. Apartments above, you can have a mixed use area where strictly residential buildings are coexisting with commercial buildings. But basically what mixed use is, it's building or groups of building that include compatible uses. So mixed uses, just think of a traditional town center that provide neighborhood services. Think of cafes, delis, barbershop, flower shop, liquor store. That's your mixed use commercial neighborhood area. And I think the key to mixed use is attracting non-vehicular traffic. It's what makes walkable neighborhoods, and we're talking about businesses and services, you know, people can walk to, can bike to. I don't believe that auto repair shop or workshops associated with contract construction businesses are appropriate for mixed use and are incompatible with a residential use together. And as I mentioned earlier, we need more housing, especially affordable housing, and like I said, there are more comprehensive and equitable ways to do that. And I don't think putting residential above auto repair or workshops is prudent. So the first and only time I met with the applicants was last summer. They proposed this mixed use of auto construction, residential, and I was skeptical of that proposal. So I asked them to provide an example. Just show me where an auto repair or workshop with an apartment above, where does that exist? Anywhere, preferably in a nice residential neighborhood like this, to help me consider it. But I've never received an example of what that looks like, of who's building it or where is that being built. You know, I've been thinking about this project for almost a year and driving around, and I still haven't seen it. So these 2 sites at 26 and 28 Grand Avenue, I mean, they've been used in some sort of auto-related business since the 1950s, about 70 years. And I'm not an environmental expert, and I have no idea about environmental characteristics of these sites, considering their historic use. But as a planner, I don't think it's prudent to put housing here. And looking forward, I think it's even less prudent to put apartments above an active auto repair or an active workshop. I believe there are going to be 3-bedroom apartments that are being proposed here, so that probably means families, it probably means children. There is a potential for noise, dust, fumes, odors from these types of businesses. And as a planner, that is not the type of environment where we should be encouraging residential development. I mean, maybe these owners, they will take every precaution to ensure health and safety of the occupants. But we're not just rezoning for these owners, we're rezoning, like we've said, for all subsequent owners who may not be as careful or as diligent. So at the end of the day, when it comes to mixing uses at these properties, you're not just voting on these 3 properties. You're voting on all auto repair shops, all workshops in Cumberland to build an apartment above their business. So for me, the question is not should apartments be allowed at these properties, but is this going to be the town's policy moving forward to allow housing above these types of businesses? And like we just said in the previous application, if you're going to go down that road, there's no going back. I think it's very poor planning practice, and overall, these projects do not meet the comprehensive plan. And at the next meeting, I will present findings of fact to recommend denial. Now I'm done.
Part 3? Is there a part 3?
That's it.
Does the board have any questions? Mr. McDonald?
I just have a comment, maybe a question. When I read this yesterday, and I'm on 25 Grand Avenue, limited business use, general business, limited business service, general business service, auto repair and construction. It seems as if limited business, correct me if I'm wrong, limited business service and general business service, they're not saying the same thing as auto repair service and construction services, contract construction service. The 2 are general and 2 are specific. So in effect, what I think they're asking, what one could assume they're asking, is for somewhat open-ended, limited business service, general business service.
I think I included in your packet the use definitions, which has a longer description, specifically lists different types of businesses.
I didn't read into that. So you're saying that I'm off the track here? I didn't read.
You're not off the track, but there's more. There's probably like a dozen or so under limited, dozen or so under general, and general contract construction has a bunch more too. So there's a lot more specific businesses listed under those categories.
So am I correct if they, by right, had general business service waiver, that would include more than just potentially auto repair and contract construction?
They want to have the opportunity to get all those types of businesses on these properties.
Okay, because I read the submission that we got online from an abutter, I believe, I don't remember the person's name, but made the point that if the property is allowed auto, and you have, I'm paraphrasing what was said, and you have these other requested uses, that who's to say if the property changes hand and a new owner buys the property and decides that he or she wants to go from this type of a business to that type of a business?
Yep.
Okay.
That will be allowed.
Chairman, I just want to clarify, so when they do a zone change, sometimes it's just to C2, and it would be anything that's allowed in C2, including what you just listed. So they're asking to be restricted to those 4 use codes. So they're not asking for every single use in the use table that's allowed in C2. They're asking for the ability to have any one, it's an and/or. So in theory, it could be construction services and limited business, or just limited business, or just general. I just want to be clear that what they're asking for is it's a limitation of those 4 types of uses.
But to Mr. McDonald's point, I mean, general services includes funeral home, car wash.
Yes.
Veterinarian, warehousing, self-storage, adult entertainment, auto body repair, so it.
Absolutely. I just want to, no, exactly. So any of those uses in the future could be mixed and matched on that site. And right now, I don't think that we know what's actually being proposed on the vacant site. So it could be any one of those, and it could change.
Anyone else have a question? No? Okay.
Thank you.
We'll listen to the applicant.
Good evening again, Charles Redahan on behalf of the applicants. I have with me this evening the applicants as well as Mr. Michael Darvo, who's the land surveyor who put the site plans together. If I could just give a brief overview, I would like to have Mr. Darvo go through the site plans. I'm sure the applicant will be able to field questions as well as the two of us. I will say that looking at the zoning map, does not provide an accurate representation of what this area looks like. While these three properties are the only properties or applications before the board this evening, there are a number of other properties on Grand Avenue that are zoned R1 residential but are functioning as commercial. Mr. Monica described that as a donut hole, I believe. I would disagree. I would say it's a commercial corridor from the beginning of Mendon Road down Grand Ave to where it intersects with Governor. I think that, number one, I know that Mr. Butler had mentioned viewing one of the other properties last night. Taking a drive down Grand Avenue is the greatest tool to be able to see the visions that the applicants have, because these, simply put, are not residential properties, or if they are residential, it is in name only. The applicants purchased these properties half a decade ago. They have undertaken significant efforts in that time to beautify the property, to clean up the property, to repair and erect new features to the property and new driveways. It is a stark contrast what it is today versus what it was prior to my clients purchasing the properties. I will also say that 25 Grand Avenue, which houses JB Cody Construction, has been existing in auto repair since the 50s and 60s in town. And I understand that it's no one in the current administration in the town that was responsible for it not being rezoned to reflect that, but the truth remains that for decades, so you could, generations at this point, it has not functioned as a residential property. I think with that in mind, knowing that this commercial corridor on Grand Avenue exists, you don't have the same concerns about allowing these types of uses to be permitted on these properties. As Ms. Moore-Salvatore referenced, we did attempt to pare down the uses that would be proposed for these properties. We pared them down to 5, I believe, 4 or 5, depending on which property. And that was an attempt to provide some clarity and transparency for what we like at these properties. Now, focusing generally on 26 Grand, it is an existing structure, two bays with a vacant second floor. The applicant would like to construct a second floor residential apartment. There are 2 tenants currently on the first floor, a plumbing company and a construction company. And I can say for both of these tenants, they really don't perform a service or operate at the property beyond storing their plumbing supplies or their construction supplies. Mixed-use residential is a permitted use under the Cumberland Code in a C2 zone property. So assuming that the property was rezoned from R1 to C2, it would be an allowable use. I know that Mr. Modica mentioned a lack of similar mixed-use properties in commercial areas in Cumberland. I will say that I believe we did stumble across similar research in other communities outside of Cumberland and outside of Rhode Island. Properties that have been nicknamed or termed as shomes or shouses, where you'll have a shop on the first floor and a home or a house, or your home, your residence on the second floor. And this allows for small businesses, this allows for tradesmen to have one space that serves both purposes. They have their business and their commercial use on the first floor, and their residential use on the second floor. And that's, I have to say, I believe that would be an attractive feature in bringing businesses to Cumberland. Not only businesses, but you would offer a property that could serve as a home base for a small business, as well as the residents for employees of that business. We did invite Mr. Modica to the property in August. I believe that we have a philosophical difference about residential over commercial, but I will say that more than anything, these potential renters, these potential tenants would be well aware of what is on the first floor of these properties. Turning your attention to 28 Grand Avenue, it is currently a vacant or undeveloped lot. They'd like to construct a 2-story building that would mirror 26 Grand Avenue, albeit larger. The same concept. Commercial on the first floor, residential on the second floor. There would be a clear demarcation between the commercial and the residential components of the structure. Grand Avenue would serve as an entrance or driveway for the commercial, and Governor would serve as an entrance for the residential. My clients have, as I've mentioned numerous times in relation to these applications, as well as the prior item on the agenda, they have invested time and capital, and they are willing to continue to do so to ensure that the harmony and integration of the residential neighborhood and the commercial neighborhood of Grand Avenue is not jeopardized. And frankly, if my clients were to do nothing, there would already be that demarcation of commercial property and residential property. It's existing, it has existed there for decades, and at this point, they are seeking a zone change first and foremost to match the zoning with what is presently at these properties. Turning last to 25 Grand Avenue is the home of JB Cody Construction. TAC Auto also has a 2-bay garage there. It is a structure that we mentioned previously, is adjacent to the vacant 28 Vivian lot, and it serves, or it has served in that capacity as a commercial area for decades. And again, we are simply asking for a zone change to reflect what has existed at the property, what exists there now, and what will exist there going forward. As I mentioned previously, I do have Mr. Michael Darvo. If I could have him join me, and he could provide some insight into the site plans that he prepared.
Let's start with 26. While the PDF is trying to be put up for 26 Grand Ave, we don't currently have any plans that were submitted for 25, the existing JB Cody construction site. Nothing is being proposed that's going to change there. It's existing building, pavement, parking, everything is going to stay the same. So there's nothing for me to propose on those plans at this time other than the zone change. I take that back. The lot in the back, the single 50 by 100 lot will be combined, like the planner mentioned, as part of that property. In regards to the 26 Grand Avenue, again, very little is going to change there. We've proposed to mark out the residential parking, which will be along it ends up being the west side of the property or the sideline to the bottom of the plan as you're looking at it on your site plan. We've proposed parking there restricted for the residential. We've placed the commercial property on the east property line, which with some demarcations there. The building itself is not going to change in shape and size and so forth. They're going to use the upper area attic space, so to speak, currently, and make that into the one apartment unit. So driving by, it'll basically look exactly the same. I assume they're going to paint and touch up or whatever, but the building shape and so forth will, be the same. We're not expanding any impervious area, et cetera, et cetera. We will be connecting to public water. There is a well currently on the property. It is currently connected to sewer, so we will be adding public water to that building. But other than that, there's no proposed changes to 26 Grand Ave. Next one, please. Over at 28 Grand Ave, the proposed building, it's currently 2 lots, 250 by 100 lots. They will be combined into one 10,000 square foot, 100 by 100 lot, frontage on Grand and Governor Street. Where we've proposed the building, we have placed it as close as possible to Grand Avenue. And the planner did mention needing some zoning variances for the parking, but we've provided 20 feet from the property line to the building. And the reason that we did that is that at a recent TRC meeting, the Public Works Director has asked us to do some drainage improvements. There's a lot of water that comes down Grand Avenue currently. It overflows partly on this property, through this property, over Governor Street, and then away from the property and so forth. So one of the items that he's asked us to do is to provide a catch basin at the intersection, which we have agreed to do. He's asked us to put a subdrain system in and connect to the catch basin, which we've agreed to do. But the biggest item is to provide the stormwater controls that we've originally proposed to make that as large as possible. So what we've done is, again, move the building to be 20 feet off of Grand Avenue, which is a parking spot between the property line and the building. And we've placed the proposed building north as much as possible to provide for a bigger vegetated swale in the rear of the building. Vegetated swale, again, is 8 inches deep, and we've maximized, oversized it so that more stormwater could be directed to that area, could hold more water, less water will go onto Governor Street and so forth. So we've accomplished that. We certainly make that back to the size that we need, provide further separation off of Grand Avenue. But this is what is being proposed at this time. We've shown parking inside of the garage area. It is allowed in the zoning code, and that square footage is a math function of how many exterior parking spots you need and so forth. We feel that we meet the zoning requirements for parking. These other items is that this building will be connected to public sewer and water. In addition to the additional drainage that the Public Works Department has requested, this site, by virtue of building this building and putting grass around it and so forth, as opposed to the highly compacted gravel that's there now, the net result is that the amount of water that's going to run off this site is going to be significantly reduced. So we didn't need to provide the vegetated swale in the back, the extra catch basin, and so forth. It was requested, and we've provided doing that. So we're trying to improve the drainage situation of what happens on Grand Avenue. I forget to mention that we're going to provide a berm along Grand Avenue that currently doesn't have one to, again, direct stormwater to that catch basin that will be constructed at the owner's expense. That's it in a nutshell for the sites.
Board have questions for Mr. Darvo or the applicant's attorney? Mr. Cody, I see you standing, so you.
Brian Cody again. So we purchased the property back in 2019, what was currently Tap Automotive. In a nutshell, a junkyard. I don't know if any of you have been around there or have grown up there. Basically, they fix big trucks and things of that sort. When we bought the property, there were dozens of trailers in the backyard. We actually didn't even know there was a driveway on the right side going around the building. The inside of the building was completely trashed. And then you drive down there today, and it's a huge difference. If you Google Earth it and you drive down the street, you can actually see there's one spot where it goes back to the old. You can see what was there versus what's there today. It's just what we've done with that property, and for the neighbors, you don't hear of any neighbors that are abutting us because how pleased they are with what we've done with the area. So we bought that in 2019, and then across the street, we bought Grand Auto, which was an auto sales, auto repair shop, which is 26 Grand Ave, which we're trying to put the apartment above. It's basically a two-car garage that's broken down into two separate rental bays on the first floor, and then we have means of separate entrance to the apartment on the second floor. When we did that, everything code-wise was met as far as double 5/8 drywall on the ceilings. We spray foamed between the spaces to prevent noise. It's fully fire alarmed. It's ready to get the approval to be an apartment put there. We made that when we renovated that building. That's when we found out that we couldn't do it. We were planning on doing it, but then we figured out we had to come here, and that started the whole process. So we met with Glenn and Mr. Stevens by August or some point last year, and we told them we want to put an apartment above this building, and then it turned into, well, show us the whole big picture of what you're trying to do, what you want to do with the neighborhood, put it all on paper. We want it all together, and that's why it's a kind of a mumbled jest, a mess of nobody really knows what we're talking about. So we'd really appreciate if you had the time to drive by, take a look at the properties, get your head wrapped around what we're trying to do. It's very commercial down there. There's also another property north of us that is in similar state of what Tap Auto was before we bought it. We're trying to improve the property, but also be mindful of the neighbors and be respectful and fit in with the neighborhood. And that's what we do, and that's what we have done. Any questions?
Board have any
I'm
questions?
sure there's questions.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Cody. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or comments that they would like to make at this point? If you do, come forward and give us your name and address for the record. Mr. Modica, is there anyone in the queue?
There is. Karen has hand raised. So I'm going to promote you to panelist, Karen, so you can speak. Okay, so you just, if you can turn on your video and unmute yourself and then state your name and address for the record.
You too.
So Karen, you need to unmute. There's a microphone button. There you are.
Okay. My name is Karen, Karin. I submitted a letter to the board. I think Glenn forwarded that to you all. I just wanted to go on record saying that Grand Avenue is not the commercial corridor that you're all being led to believe. Half of the street is residential and half is commercial only by grandfathered buildings and businesses. And really, that's all I have to say, because I submitted my thoughts, so, and my views, in written form. So thank you.
Karen, can you spell your last name, please?
Sure. ANASTASIADES. Oh, I'll start again. It left, yeah, left out letters. ANASTASIADES.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if the applicant has seen those comments. They probably should be made available to the applicant.
I forwarded them to Mr. Reddick.
Oh, you have them? All
Yeah,
right, because I haven't seen them, so.
Yes, if those, that was what Emily had sent.
Okay.
us,
Correct.
Then, okay, I've seen that, yes.
Right.
If I could briefly address the public's comment. I would just say that, as I mentioned earlier, I certainly understand a community member wanting to voice his or her concerns, but the fact remains, what is already on Grand Avenue is there. As I've belabored, it's zoned R1, but these commercial properties are there presently. With the exception of 28 Grand Avenue in the new structure, which would not be totally commercial, it would be half residential. These structures are there. So I think that any concerns that the community would have, I mean, anyone that has moved into the area, frankly, since the 1960s, has been aware of the commercial character of this portion of Grand Ave as it extends from Mendon Road to Governor. So I guess that would be my response to that.
Thank you. Mr. Modica, is there anyone else in the queue?
No, there is not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'd like to hear from the board if they have any questions or comments.
I'd just like to say, I think Mr. Cody, is it? I mean, I think you're very sincere in what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that and what you've done in the neighborhood. This is just a lot to take in first night, you know, so, right, it needs a little more time to look at this, and again, consider the overall consequences of, you know, our actions on what may happen down the road in other parts of town. So that's what we're really trying to consider. But I do appreciate your efforts.
Okay, thank you. And if I could just add, just want to remind you that we're on Mendon Road, and 99 is literally right down the street. It's right at the end of 99 and Mendon Road right there, so.
Mr. Modica, you do have some staff report to include here, am I correct?
No, I'll provide that at your next meeting.
Yes, that's what I mean. You'll provide for it. Excuse me, I got a dry mouth. You will provide the report to us for next meeting.
Correct, before
Yes,
your,
that's
I believe it's June
correct.
27th, you'll
Okay.
have that in advance
Mhm.
for all four
Yeah.
of the last applications.
When I first looked at all of this, yes, it was somewhat confusing. And the more I looked at it, the more I looked at it, the more I understood it. Okay? So I just want to let you know that it's, for me anyway, I can't speak for the rest of the board. I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together, so I kind of think I got the puzzle pretty much put together at this point.
And the only thing I could say is if you drive down there, take a look, you'll understand much better about what we're trying to do and the surrounding area. And we've invited the town council down there. We've had several meetings with them, and everything has gone well. Once you get the understanding of what's there, so.
I've driven by there a number of times, but I've never really driven into the you know, the deep part of the, you know, the residential side of it. But I will take another look at it. Anything else from Ms. Butler?
I would just reiterate what Mr. Bush said. I don't think I had ever been on Grand Avenue before last night. I've been by Maria's shop a million times, but never poked my head down Grand Avenue. So I don't know what it looked like prior to you folks purchasing it, but as I said, it is obvious that there's been a lot of improvements. You can tell the outsides of the buildings have been refurbished and parking lots and all of that kind of stuff. So I definitely applaud what you've done for that neighborhood. It certainly looks much better. I do think it's a stretch to call it a commercial corridor. I mean, Mendon Road is a commercial corridor. I mean, I think a portion of Grand Avenue, it certainly is commercial. I mean, it's all obviously auto body shops and garages. And so I think that portion of Grand Avenue is certainly commercial. And it was helpful to drive by. It made the staff reports make a little bit more sense once I was able to actually see the properties and see how everything fit together. So if folks have the opportunity to do that before next month, I think it would be helpful. And again, I applaud what you're trying to do, but I also think Mr. Modica brings up a lot of good points for us to consider, again, around mostly the residential. Obviously, there's existing non-conforming uses there. They've been there since the 50s and 60s. So I think anyone moving into that neighborhood could readily expect that there'll be auto body in that area for quite some time. But when you're adding more residential, especially on top of commercial, I mean, usually when we see mixed use, it's a doctor's office, it's a convenience or hair salon, nail salon. It's kind of a more passive use than a car detailing, auto body, auto repair, those kinds of uses. So I think that's something that at least I need to give more thought to about how that all works. And obviously the concern that there is a lot of variances and conflicts with the special use tables. So it's a lot to think about.
If I could just interject. So there's an issue with having residential above the commercial that we're trying to do. There's restaurants or bars in town with residents above that has greater fire hazard, greater noise at night. You know, they're open till, I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock at night serving alcohol. There's greater presence of people and rodents. What I'm trying to do is basically have a contractor basically that, and we have it currently now, that their storage is there, their trucks are parked there. They come in the morning, they get what they need to go, they go to the job site, they do what they have to do, they come back and unload, and they're gone. They're not there all hours of the night. We have provisions in their lease for noise restrictions. We try and control that the best we can and make it manageable. But in my opinion, having a residence above a bar is far worse than what we're trying to do, and I know we have that. So just food for thought.
I'm sure we do have that, but it probably pre-existing for 40, 50, 60 years. What we're trying to do is improve upon the use and how we develop the town, and not go back to, what things were in the 1940s or whatever.
Well, some of these sites are relatively small. So am I correct in assuming that there would be no outside storage of any kind?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. It's mainly for the garage space, so they can park their vehicle, they can wash their vehicle inside, they can store their material inside, and there is no outdoor storage. That's correct.
All right, thank you very much. We've got a lot to digest.
Thank you for your time and your consideration to the same.
You're welcome. Public comment. It's always in there.
Wait a minute, so for those, some of them were advertised, so you need to continue them, right? Was some advertising notice? I would just continue all 3 at whether they need to be or not.
Okay.
But you need a motion.
Yep, got it.
I'll
Ms.
make
Butler.
a motion that we continue items 8, 9, 10, and 11 to the regular June planning board meeting. Oh, on June 27th.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Reese. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes yes. The motion carries. So now, public comment.
Is there anyone virtually who'd like to speak to the board about any matter? We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, Maria can come back? Just in time. Well, okay. Motion by Ms. Vlasic, seconded by Mr. Bush. All in favor?